short. There you go. So, as Derek mentioned, my name is Natasha. I'm known as Natasha the Robot from my blog. I blog about iOS and Swift. I also run a popular Swift newsletter called This Week in Swift. So if you want any latest stuff in Swift, that's my newsletter. I run a job board, and I think most importantly, I run the Try Swift conference around the world. We have Tokyo. This year we're going to add Bangalore in India and New York. The Tokyo conference is organized by the community, including some people here. If you'd like to come, it's in March 2nd to 4th. We have a special discount for this meetup. Try Tokyo iOS, and you'll get a $50 discount. We're also looking for volunteers. So if you can't afford it or your company won't pay for it, let us know, and there's a sign-up sheet to become a volunteer. Most of the talks will be in English, so it's perfect, I think, for this community especially, and the Japanese talks will be translated simultaneously, and it's tryswift.co. So that's a little bit about me. I do talk and do a lot of Swift, but today I'm going to switch it up and talk about something else. So I'm going to talk about the app ecosystem, and it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. So there are over 2 million apps in the App Store. And how many of you contribute to the 2 million? Probably everyone in here. And that's a lot of apps. And more apps are coming out every day. But unfortunately, most smartphone users only download like 0 apps per month, which is not good for our jobs and for what we do. Furthermore, people who download it pretty much stop using the app. So an average app loses 95% of users within the first month. So that's pretty bad. But I don't know, I'm not a very negative person. So this might sound bad, but this is why I want to talk to you today. I want to talk about how we can think differently, and not how we think differently, but how Apple is thinking differently about the app stores. It's getting so saturated, and I think the future direction of where it's going and what you can do to kind of be on that edge and not be one of those, millions of apps that's not known. So I think the future is basically not thinking about apps as apps, but thinking of apps as your app as kind of that maybe a supplemental part of different features. So you're going to have different array of features, and your app is going to be sort of that nice entry point to make the UI nice. But you have to really think about the bigger picture, and I'll explain some of what Apple is doing to disconnect the main app and think of kind of those other features that can hook into your app and make your app more popular. And the key here is to play a game, and the game is, how can the user use your app without ever opening your app? That's the key here. So the first thing is notifications. Most apps kind of functions with notifications as your interface. The Apple Watch, I think, really brought notifications to the forefront because it's basically a notification device. Sure, it could be maybe a fitness device, but a lot of its function throughout the day is it tells you when you got that text message. So most of your apps should already have notifications. And because of the success of Apple Watch and notifications there, Apple has expanded notifications in iOS 10 to become rich notifications. So look at this. This is the iMessage app. And you can have a full conversation with someone without ever opening their app. So that there's one way someone doesn't have to open your app. And this is an example from Apple, but here's a really great example from Foursquare. They took a notification, they made it a rich notification, and now as I'm traveling, it knows by time of day when to send me a notification about cool things to do around me. So I might not have thought, hey, I should open the Foursquare app and see what's going on, but because they send that notification at a relevant time of day and easily, like, it told me exactly exciting things to do by making it a little bit rich, I now have an entrance to their app. I'm using their app without ever using their app. So this is really something to think about. If your app already has notifications, think that's a feature, right? But what if you can expand that feature a little bit and you can make your app so useful that the user never has to open it? That's the key here. Next is speech recognition. So we've had AirPods, which I can go on and complain about because I have 2 sets of headphones and they're not available, they're not in stock. So it's kind of painful right now, that painful transition when they removed the headphone jack. And they might seem like they're just headphones. They're just like nice Bluetooth headphones. This is great. But what really changed my mind was this amazing article from Slate talking about how AirPods are not just your headphones. That's not what Apple is going for. The future is AirPods are a new type of computer. So think Google Glass, but Apple making it. This is Apple's Google Glass. It doesn't seem like it yet. And I think the main frustration is if you've done speech recognition, it's not that great. But the future is speech recognition is going to improve, and Apple is at the forefront here. So there's this amazing study from Andrew Ng, the chief scientist of Baidu, and he says that as speech recognition accuracy goes from 95% to 99%, all of us in the room will go from barely using it today to using it all the time. The difference between 95% accuracy and 99% accuracy is a game changer. So this is something that Apple is setting up for. It's not there, but they removed their headphone jacks, so we're kind of forced to get used to the AirPods. The battery life is great, so the goal is to have the AirPods in your ear all day long, right? It's as close as you get to embedding a chip in your brain. It's going to be whispering in your ear, you're going to be talking to it. That's the future. It's as speech recognition improves, you're going to be already used to AirPods, and it's going to have more and more functionality. So currently, Siri API is new and it's very limited. It's limited to messaging, audio, video calling, payments, searching for photos, workouts, ride booking. A lot of people have complained about this, but if you think from Apple perspective, they want the AirPods experience to be good. And to do that, they have to start slow. If they open it up to everyone for anything, then consumers are only going to be disappointed. It's not going to work. You're not going to want to use your AirPods. But as they're starting slowly. They're going to train the system. They're going to test the system. And maybe, 5 years from now, you can do anything, and it's going to be perfect, and it's going to totally recognize everything. And guess what? You're not going to want to use your app. You're not going to go to your phone, use your app. You're going to ask Siri for everything because it's in your head. So this is something, again, you can do now. That's a cute little feature that Apple came out with, at WWDC. But if you do have one of those intents, such as payments maybe in your app already, add this feature, add Siri, right? It's not going to take you that much time, and it builds you up for that future where your app is not the entry point. The consumer can interact with your app without ever opening it. Next is extensions. That's another big thing in iOS 10 that's been kind of growing over time. This is the Maps app, and as of iOS 10, Open Table, I don't have to open OpenTable to make a reservation at a restaurant. I can embed it straight into the Apple Maps app. So this is the thing. I might not think to open OpenTable, but I'm going to probably use Apple's Apple Map app. I'm probably going to use iMessage app. So there's already built-in apps that users use every day, just all the time. So why not hook up into those apps? And that's the key. This is a way to interact with your user without them ever having to consider your app, because your app is so convenient. It's right there. They don't have to think about it. So this is the maps. Next, they introduced the iMessage extensions. And the magic here is, for iMessage, the second user never has to download the app. So I can send you an ice cream cone. Your friend can go build ice creams, but they don't even have to download that iMessage app to interact with you. So this is really different, because now the user doesn't even have to install your app to interact with it. Same for the weather app. I can send my friend the weather forecast, and she never has to look it up anywhere. She just gets the message, she sees it, she doesn't have to download anything. But at this point, she's still interacting with your app. So this is the user who doesn't even have your app installed, interacting and using information from your app. Next, there's stickers. So I think people were kind of laughing at stickers. I don't know, maybe not in Japan, but in the US, when you're at WWDC and they spent all this time like saying stickers, stickers, and we're just like, oh, come on, this is weird. So I think Japan is different, but this is the Yelp app, and this is kind of a silly feature that you can add to your app, right? This is the Yelp app, but their stickers are not really related to their app, right? You're not making a reservation, you're not like giving reviews, but their stickers are sort of cute and they have really strong branding. So when you send the sticker, a cute sticker to your friend, they think, okay, Yelp, they have a little branding. But I think it can go beyond that. So there's this great article from Andreessen Horowitz, and it says, it took Line Messenger almost 4 months to find its first 2 million users. But after stickers were launched, it took only 2 days to find the next million. And now the company makes over $270 million just selling stickers. So maybe it's something that starts off as a silly feature to add stickers to your app. That could be a huge money generator. You might not even need an app. You might just want to focus on stickers. So again, these are really huge opportunities where your consumer is going to be interacting with your app without ever opening your app. So again, can you integrate your app into already existing Apple services like Maps or iMessage? Can you add those stickers? Can you integrate with those extensions? So what is the future? We just talked about how Apple is kind of subtly moving in the direction where the consumer taking their phone, clicking on the app is kind of that old past way of doing things. They're going to be interacting with your app by getting a notification, maybe they click on it. But I think the future is going to be a lot similar to Android Instant apps. So I know we're all iOS developers, but if you watch Google I/O at all, just for our curiosity, Google has created this concept of Android Instant apps. And the key is, it's kind of a hybrid between web and native UI, because that's the problem. The reason we don't make hybrid apps or with the web stuff is because it doesn't feel good on that phone. We make iOS apps. But the way that Google is doing it is the user never has to install the app. But let's say they're paying a parking ticket. They click the link to pay the parking ticket. The user will have only the UI to pay the parking ticket install on their app instantly, or on their phone instantly. So this is basically installing kind of those micro parts of your app that are needed exactly for that workflow. So this is, again, might sound familiar with iMessage stickers. Apple, you don't have to download the iMessage sticker app to interact with it if your friends send it to you. But maybe that's the future. The person doesn't even have to, they don't have to install your app, right? Apple will install just the extension or part of the app that is needed to complete the interaction. And that could be done really quickly because they don't have to download the entire app with all your assets. They only need to download that little part of the app. So I don't know, obviously this is what Google has, and I don't know what Apple will come up with, but I think something like an instant apps type of idea is very powerful because we are all basically looking through the app. This is app discovery of the future. You don't want to be looking through the app store searching for an app to pay a parking ticket. But if it downloads nicely to your app in a little square and you can just go and use Apple Pay and be done with the transaction, that's magic. That's how we want our phones to work. So hopefully, I know it started out scary, but hopefully this kind of gives you that hope that you can do stuff. And I want to I know this is still kind of that future direction and you can add those extensions, but I do want to talk about the more practical side of architecting your code for features versus apps. So how can you think today about what Apple might announce at WWDC 2017? So this is just a small list. I'm sure you can all think of a better list of things to do, but this is what I'll cover today. Basically adding frameworks, vectorized images, and NS user activity. So frameworks, I think these are more important than ever. As I mentioned, I gave examples of some of the extensions that we have, like Siri or notifications. But this is actually slowly, Apple has been adding share extension here and there. So over the years, extensions have seriously added up. So I couldn't even take a screenshot of all the extensions. It's only, you can see there's more if you scroll up and down. So these are basically ways for users to interact with your app that you're not implementing. But if you do want to implement, there's a problem. You have the same data over and over again, right? And then on top of all the extensions, we have multiple platforms. So we have iPhone, Apple Watch, TV. There's no iPad emojis, so there's also iPad. You can imagine the AirPods, maybe like next generation of AirPods, you'll be able to create an app on it. So there's a lot of not only extensions, but also frameworks. And that leads to a lot of duplicate code. And the best way to deal with these is to get rid of your model layer and put it into a framework that you can reinstall as you need to. That sounds easy, but it's pretty complicated, especially with cross-platform stuff. You have to do a special checkbox to say, because you can't use UIKit on the watch, right? So you have to have like very pure code as you build your framework. So you have to keep that in mind. There's also other ways to do it, like app groups. There's iCloud key value storage is another way to share information between different platforms. But I don't have time to go into kind of all the hackery you need to do to create cross-platform frameworks. It's like some of it is undocumented, it's painful, like you have to just change the supported frameworks, and another part you have to say, I want it done 1, 2, 3, and 3 maps to Apple TV. So it's not that great right now. Hopefully Apple will fix this. But this is a really great talk from Fabio Milano at the Pragma conference. And he kind of walks through some of the things you'll have to do to create. It's not that bad if you follow instructions exactly. It's just not like intuitive, and it's not like it just works. It just you have to know random weird things. But it's doable, and now once you have that framework for your model layer, you can now easily create Apple TV app, Watch app. Now Apple came out at WWDC with a new platform. Bam, you just add that in. You can already make an app that night. So this is really important to do in your app. Something you can really do right now, especially if you even add one extension, change your model layer into a framework. Yeah, frameworks are amazing. Next is images, or just assets in general. So this is more thinking about how can you ask your designers to provide assets in a way that can be scalable across different extensions and frameworks. It's not possible to vectorize all images. Like for our conference, we have pictures of speakers. That's not a vector image. But as it comes up, maybe different icons, that's something super easy that they can do that you can change to platforms. So once it becomes a vectorized image, you can now insert PDFs. When you add your PDF, it's just going to show up as an image. So all you have to do is just say that this is a universal single scale image, and now it becomes a vector image. And as you resize, it's going to look high resolution and nice across different platforms. There's also another one cool trick. You can also make it render as a template image. And that allows you, especially for icons, you can change the color of your icon. So maybe on the Apple Watch you want it purple, or you have a dark theme, but on your iOS you have a light theme. You can easily just change the color with one line of code. You don't have to ask your designer for another image. So this is all it does. I now made my vector image purple. So it's not great for like every single image in your app, but there's definitely going to be use cases where, okay, you might use the same icons across all platforms. You might as well have a vector image that scales, that you can change colors, that's more flexible. Yeah, so that's kind of what it said. You can make single scale PDFs and template image for icons. But as this technology evolves, you do have to kind of force your designers to give you the assets in the format that's best for scalability. That's something you should talk about. Finally, NS user activity. This is like super important. I think it's like way underused for most apps. So this is, remember when I mentioned those instant apps on Android? So if Apple would have some kind of instant apps, this would be, I think NS user activities would be the way this would be integrated into your app. Why? Because it already is. So NS user activity has been actually around. So it started off as an API for handoff. So when you have your iPad app and you want to show it on your iPhone app, it started off with that. You can kind of deep link into your iPhone app. But then they added one thing. You can now, when you go to Safari and you click, maybe you're on a certain web page, you click on it, it might say like an Instagram picture, it might say open in the app, and when you open in the app, it magically opens up to that exact picture. That is done with NS user activity. So this is in the app delegate, and there's this application user activity restoration handler. So it gives you the user activity, and your app will parse it and decide based on the URL of the website, how that matches into the view control, the proper view controller of your app. So this is something that's already built in. It's pretty simple. The hard part is more on the website. So the cool thing about NS user activity is that only your app can deep link into your app. So for example, if you have a Twitter link from like another app, like a tweet bot, it cannot open the Twitter app. So you have to upload specific secret files into your website to know that it can go only to your app. So it's very secure. You can, pretty much know the user's authenticated at that point. But yeah, so user activity started as this thing, but it's kind of grown a lot in iOS 10. So now what can you do? Well, let's say search. So user looks for search. They search for steps, your app comes up. They search for, maybe you have a shopping, you have like an Amazon app, and you just search for Raspberry Pi on Amazon. Now you forgot about this, you search for a Raspberry Pi, Amazon app will show up. And this is free way for users to use your app without ever opening it, and it's super convenient. They opened your app, they searched for something, now they search here, your app shows up. That's like free linking to your app. Take advantage of this. Next, this is also a really amazing feature that you can do with NS user activity. In Foursquare, let's say I just looked for a place, so not on an item, but some kind of, I looked up a pizza place nearby, and I forgot about it. Well, when I open the Apple app, the Apple Maps app, the pizza place just shows up that I just looked for. That's convenient. I click on it, I go to it. I don't have to open Foursquare, look for it, copy paste the address, go to the app. You can do contextual reminders. So maybe you're like, hey, let's go to dinner tomorrow. You can say, Siri, remind me about this and this word, this. They're gonna know what you're referring to. So this is something you can build into your app. Siri integration. Finally, we talked about that integrating into other apps. If you can also integrate into the contacts app. So in this case, WhatsApp shows up on the person's contact page for free, right? So this is all like free ways to get it for people to use your app and remind them of your app without ever having to mentally like open your app and see it. Because here they look and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna use WhatsApp to do a VoIP call. That's my favorite way of calling. And now WhatsApp gets free user interaction. I'm not going to go into too much about the implementation of NS user activity. It's really not that difficult. Like I said, the most difficult part is getting your web server team to upload, to connect the app to the to there, and maybe fixing your API to work with it. But a lot of it is just, I think the main issue with NS user activity is you can do all these things and they're all hooked up from that application delegate method. So you might have a really big if statement, which is not great. So you might want to extract that into a separate thing. Hopefully in the future, Apple will kind of separate NS user activity to be more, I don't know, to be nicer, to be more architecturally sound. Right now it's really horrible. You do have to make if it's this type, if it's coming from handoff, do this. If it's coming from the web, do this. If you're searching, do this. So you have to do these if statements. It's horrible. But you can do all these amazing things for users to interact with your app outside your app, just with user activity. And obviously it's clear to imagine that if Apple had some kind of instant app type of interface, it would also kind of hook into the same type of system that it's doing here. So hopefully this helps you think of your app in the bigger picture and maybe stop complaining about the App Store, because I think your app is bigger. Your app is basically the nice user interface for when the user gets there from somewhere. So make sure that when the user does click onto a notification, they're taking to the right screen. So many apps don't do this. When they see the Instagram picture and they say open an app, it opens up to that exact picture. So this is kind of the most important things you can do for your app to make sure it interacts, kind of in that feature, bigger picture, rather than thinking of your app as the opening point. Because your app is becoming less and less the point where the user starts. But it is still going to be the point of interface where they might start somewhere else, but they go into your app and they complete some kind of flow, or they complete some kind of action. So these are some of the things you can do, as I mentioned today, that are free, they're available. I think they'll set you up in a nice way for the next, whatever Apple comes out with next. So hopefully that encourages you. So this was Build Features, Not Apps. I'm Natasha the Robot. I do have stickers, if anyone, and I'm around, so come say hi. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
So as a user/consumer, I find Siri to be absolutely terrible, especially compared to even like Alexa or like Google, and so I'm just curious as to, in your sort of assessment opinion, like how do you feel about that going forward, that does seem to be kind of the future. I know a lot of UX designers are kind of nervous about bots and the fact of voice control and how that could sort of limit their ability to do things. So how do you feel about Apple in that sense, as far as that, Google does seem to have so much, I've already processed so much information, seems so much better. And then even Alexa I find superior to Siri. So for that perception / the ability for them to improve.
Yeah, so I think it's a long-term game. I think that's common with Apple, right? They're not usually the first to come out with this stuff, but when they do it, it's better. So I think right now they're in the beginning stages. But if you're thinking like 2-3 years over, that technology will be a lot more available. So Apple is already starting to train. They're training their voice recognition. So I think long term, it'll all converge to be similar quality, kind of like cars. They're all,
You don't think that there's a bit of a Google having that already?
Yeah, they're ahead of.
The information
I think
just
so.
coming.
I
You don't
think
that you
Google
think it
is
can catch
better.
up?
Well, I think it'll be more. The knowledge will be more available, like the engineering knowledge, right? It's like machine learning, or I think that will be more available because it'll be more open. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Well, I know they've been acquiring a lot of things, but
Yeah.
I still just see Siri as terrible. And I haven't
Yeah,
seen
right
the
now it's
improvement
terrible.
Over all these years.
I don't use Siri. I'm not like a
I've never
Siri
used it.
person, but I think there's going to be a point where like voice recognition technology will reach its peak, and like everyone will have it almost.
Okay.
It'll just be like everyone will kind of be at the same level eventually, but not today. Today, I agree with you.
How many people or how many percentage of people are using iMessage in the US, like compared with WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger?
I don't have those numbers. In the US, I think it's more common to use text messaging, but now that I travel, I use like WhatsApp more, and I started using Line a little bit. Yeah, but they have a lot of users. It's built into the phone.
Yeah, I'm interested in developing iMessage app, so I just wanted to know the.
A lot of people. I think in their keynotes they mention it. I think so, but I don't have the exact numbers, but it's a lot of people. Like you'll be reaching a lot of users with iMessage.
Thanks.
But only you can reach to only the Apple people, right? Like, there's no iMessage compatible, for
Yeah,
Android.
you have to text your Android friend, the green bubble friend. Yes, that's correct. But if you're thinking of your app, right, the Android people can't use your app either. So when you're texting them a sticker, you have to be making the stickers for Apple, like iPhone consumers.
But could I follow up on that? But also,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Facebook has like a bot technology. Like, is it just that you would adapt Apple's one, or like Facebook bots have, for their messenger could work on multiple platforms?
Yeah, that's right.
So, like, does it mean that we necessarily need to stick with Apple ecosystems to do some of these things, or could the concept of building features also apply for some of the other like large tech companies that also have their own capability of providing features?
Yeah, definitely. I think, isn't there like an app in China that does like everything?
WeChat does,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's just like you can say anything and but it deploys to the correct app. So it's still the same concept where your app does kind of part of the user flow, but some kind of other app will hook up and tell you, or chatbot will be like, hey, this app, make a reservation, and your app is responsible for making the reservation. Yeah, for sure. Any other question?
I'm not an iOS developer, so I don't really know the state of monetization on iOS, but where do you see that moving with this sort of thing, where your app becomes a whole lot more discoverable and accessible? You have a whole lot more opportunity for users to access your app, but they're not opening it, they're not looking at potential advertising or doing in-app purchases. So
Yeah, so that's definitely a big challenge because we have to rethink how, what is, because when you're making the app, you add analytics and you're saying, how many views does my app have per month? But there's the app Dark Sky, and you never open the app, you just see, hey, it's raining today, and that's the whole app. So how do you know that the user interacted with your app? You need new type of metrics. For monetization, I think advertising is harder, obviously, like you said, because if you're just getting a notification, now you have to put the advertising in there, maybe. I don't know, it's not great. So you have to really rethink things. It's kind of like a new way of doing things. But some of it is direct monetization. So like Uber app, where I tell Siri, get me a ride, Uber gets money directly. So you have to think, or if you're like, buy me shoes, buy these shoes by adding that search spotlight, and they buy the shoes, that's money flowing in. So I think it's definitely going to be a challenge for the advertising type of apps. Good point.
What do you think about Apple Watch as a feature?
Yeah, it's definitely a feature. I agree. It's kind of a main feature where, because you can't do a lot on the Apple Watch, right? You can't. Yeah, I agree.
I think it's worth the time for most people to develop.
I'm biased.
Yeah.
But you have to see. It also depends on what,
Yeah.
for some apps it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't think you should make an Apple Watch app just for the sake of making an Apple Watch app, which is what a lot of companies do.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like notifications might be very powerful.
Yeah.
If you need some features like workout, that's really powerful. But a lot of apps, a lot of companies don't need an Apple Watch app. Actually, the future of Apple Watch apps is complications.
Oh, yeah.
Super convenient for the Try Swift app.
Yes, there's a timer, countdown. But I think complications will improve. So, it's really hard to go into the app, but if your app is so important, then the user is willing to add you as a complication.
True.
That means you have a good app.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the future, complications will be more ephemeral. Right now, it should be context-based.
Yeah.
It's like, I came to work. Okay, it should show me my work schedule, calendar or something. I left work, now it should show me my train complication. It should show me my, what's for dinner around me complication. So I think complications will evolve and become more smart.
Yeah.
Right now, we have notifications, we have some workout features, we have a few complications.
Yeah. I found when I was programming for Apple Watch, the best input feature on it is actually the voice dictation.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not like Siri, where Siri takes whatever to respond. It's just like your friend sent you a text message, and then inside your app you can use it. It could be like, no, that's silly. You just say it, and it's actually really good at dictating.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's a good feature.
Whoever used AirPods, is Siri better on AirPods? I don't know if you talked to your AirPods yet.
The wind can affect the Siri a lot. Like riding a bicycle and trying to use the AirPods, it's pretty tough lots of times. She doesn't understand, but outdoors it can be a little bit tough. It seems like because of the angle of it. Inside it's good, but outside it can be it's a little bit windy or you're moving fast. It's no good.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a real problem with talking to the AirPods because you look like a crazy person to other people. So I've actually reprogrammed, so I double tap to turn off the volume.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't be like, Siri, turn the volume down. People look at you like, who's he talking to?
I think that's the same problem when there are those Bluetooth headsets and people talk and they're talking to someone on the phone, but it's Bluetooth.
Yeah, I just don't think the voice control of AirPods is going to really take off.
Or maybe they'll skip the voice recognition and go straight to reading your mind.
That'd be. I'm waiting for that to happen. Yeah.
Just brain moves.
Starting up the voice takes a little too long too. Like after you double tap it, it feels like it's a good second before it actually starts up, and then you're never sure if
That's
after
true.
Siri responds, like sometimes she says, I don't know. And then you're not sure if she's still listening to you or she's gone on to talk to somebody else. It can be a little disconcerting. It needs to be the kind of, the double tap doesn't work so well. It needs the kind of like OK Google or just a voice cue to start it up because it takes a good second or two to start turning up the volume.
Good to know.
Is this presentation will be available?
Yeah, I'll post it online.
Can I, going on the voice thing, one of the thoughts that I've had with respect to Siri versus, let's say, like Alexa or what Google is doing is like Amazon actually made like a home appliance that you use in your home. And I have, like, it seems like people have no problem talking out loud in their own home to a device, whereas Apple made Siri, which is like usable everywhere, and to some degree, it seems like Alexa has done better. Is there a certain degree where there's a social component where people like are eventually going to just be using these voice things everywhere, or is there just like a social norm that says like, well, in my home, this technology is going to work well, but outside of my home, it isn't?
Inside a car, Google Assistant, like for example, if you're in a car, it's way better than Siri. And so like you're in your car, you're in your private little bubble. Obviously us here in Tokyo, we don't usually experience that as much, but say you're in America or Australia, you're driving around, going to work, you're by yourself in your car, it's way better. Siri is terrible at all that stuff. Whereas Google has that down, like already, and then they've got their massive learning going on at the same time. That's my concern about Apple trying to go into this realm as their sort of interface. I just wonder if they're going to ever be able to catch up.
Can you be a little more concrete on what it is that it's just so terrible in the car? Like, what are you saying or asking? Or what is so terrible?
It just doesn't feel as like intuitive, and then a lot of times I feel like it doesn't recognize. Like it's like whereas Google recognizes, even Alexa, I think Alexa is not as good as Google, but Alexa still, I don't get as many awkward. You kind of have your cues as to what you know you're supposed to talk to it about. And then when you veer outside of it, I feel like, it's a little bit more clear. Whereas Siri, I feel like even just within the sphere of what I'm supposed to, it doesn't recognize it as often. And so then you just sort of automatically, you have so many of a few bad cues, and then you start to just be like, this isn't usable, or the usability doesn't work. So you just kind of, whereas with Google and Alexa, I found I don't have that experience. Like the flow keeps, it kind of happens, right? The user flow.
I have the same thing. I can't use Siri. But what's really weird is on iOS, the dictation works almost flawlessly, but Siri understands so little and so inconsistently. And it's like, I know if I type the text that the dictation understands Siri would be fine with it, but for some reason I can ask a question. It can be something that works half the time, and the other half it's like, I don't understand.
It's not consistent. That seems to be the biggest problem. And so with something simple like that, as a user, I'm like, ugh, it's just frustrating, because the whole point is you're supposed to make this easier, and I might as well have just picked it up and tapped it, Whereas I don't find that with my Echo, but I wouldn't want to do that out in the street, though.
But that could change. Cultures change, right? People talk to Bluetooth headsets, and 15 years ago that was crazy, man. You were a loon.
Now it's look like a douche in my opinion. I don't know. That's so true.
Increasingly, though, right? Like increasingly, if a guy's talking to himself walking the street, I think he's probably got a Bluetooth on the other side of his head. I can't see it.
Well, it's kind of obnoxious, doesn't it? Social norm still feels obnoxious. Like that guy that's like in his suit and he's like, I'm big important, my conversation is, you know what I mean? It just feels annoying.
I think it can change. I think that's something we don't know because it's not accurate enough that everybody's doing it, right? If it were so intuitive, you just walk around and you're like, what's the wrong? People get used to it, I think. I don't know, but I think we're so far away from it being accurate that we won't know until it is. And once it is, it may be like you said, where everyone does it at home, and as soon as we step outside, we text it. Or maybe each person has a different comfort level, but it's so common that you just don't think about it either way.
Like walking with your cell phone.
Yeah, like if you remember the movie like Her, what I think it was called, right? And you didn't really feel that awkward just because everyone was kind of used to it, right? And I could see that happening over time. We're just very far from knowing whether or not it will happen.
Like the sadness of seeing a couple at dinner, both of them just did. And now we're all used to that. Right?
social norms are tough to predict, though. That's the thing, because often there's a backlash. It's like, then it starts to become normal, and then people start really complaining about it. Like,
Yeah, Google
cell phones
Glass
ringing at theaters or
wasn't
something.
normal.
It's like, there can be a very strong cultural backlash to something. They're like, oh, maybe we would have predicted everybody just gets used to, like, you're watching a movie and people's cell phone goes off. Instead, the opposite happened, and people got so annoyed by it that the social norm went the other way, basically. Like, that can happen, too. That's why it's very difficult to know.
I think Google Glass, one of the biggest issues they had was it felt so intrusive. Like there's always that light,
It's
you know,
a
the
camera.
suspicion,
Yeah.
where like there's a Snapchat camera where you just do this and it does the same thing and no one cares.
But it looks cute.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Google Glass still had that kind of like, not to use the vulgar term, but that kind of douche quality to it, right? It felt like I'm the Google Glass guy. Whereas I feel like Snapchat, it's more of this like playful,
Like, I'm cool.
yeah, or it sort of has that like, maybe there's the hipster kind of note to it, but it's also just like, it's got more of a playful thing, whereas Google, it was more of like, you know, I'm this important person that has the Google Glass.
I think the ambient quality helps. Because if they just look like normal glasses and if they didn't have a camera, it was just, oh cool, I can see.
Yeah,
Whatever,
exactly, more, like,
perfect.
subtle, yeah.
But it's like, look, there's this huge thing. And even Siri is kind of, you have to talk to it, right? You have to be like Dick Tracy, or like this. It's kind of, it stands out. That's what,
Hi,
yeah.
one program. App release, but rejects. Beacon, BLE, location information. But approve, difficult. No, nothing rejects. I'm up BLE, Bluetooth, get location information. But approve, difficult. Your idea, location information.
It rejects the location of information.
I tried BLE and Bluetooth user get location, but Apple reject reason. No location information. I try every day, but no release. BLE Bluetooth difficult. Your idea. You have idea.
How's the user inputting the location information?
Yeah. Yes.
They type or?
Yeah. Google Glass and
Oh, but Google
BLE
Glass.
and location.
Okay, they're just like.
But Apple difficult, very difficult.
The app uses Google Glass and BLE.
Yeah.
I know you have to set the strings. You have to write the reason in the app. In the configuration, you have to say, I want to use Bluetooth to do this. I want to use location to do this. That might be a simple thing like that.
Hi.
But I don't know if they're fighting with Google. Because sometimes Apple fights.
Hi.
And you're the victim. Like if Apple decides it's rejecting Google Glass for everything, sometimes you might be the victim. It might be that reason.
Hi.
But if you have the string, yeah, make sure you have the description for why I use location.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please,